I wasn't sure if I should continue doing these travel tips, but I thought we need to stay as normal as possible and give you a little break from the monotony. So I'm going to continue these Saturday travel tips until I change my mind. This was the travel tip for actually last week, but here goes. Welcome to this week's travel tip. This week's travel tip takes us to Eastern California and U.S. Highway 395 and Owens Lake and Owens River. Owens Lake was given that name by the explorer John C. Fremont in honor of one of his guides, Richard Owens. Before the diversion of the Owens River, Owens Lake was up to 12 miles long and 8 miles wide, covering an area of up to 108 square miles. In the last few hundred years, the lake had an average depth of 23 to 50 feet and sometimes overflowed to the south, after which the water would flow into the Mojave Desert. In 1905, the lake's water was thought to be excessively saline. In the 1890s, existing water supplies for Los Angeles were thought to be inadequate to sustain the rapid growth the city was experiencing. In 1892, Fred Eaton, an engineer from a prominent Los Angeles family, began promoting the construction of an aqueduct from Owens Valley to increase the supply. His idea of numerous schemes proposed at the time was not taken seriously. However, in 1903, a study of Owens Valley as a site for a federal irrigation project began. In 1877, at age 22, Irish-born William Mulholland arrived in Los Angeles. Many of you have probably heard of Mulholland Dam in Hollywood Hills, the 21-mile scenic Mulholland Drive and Mulholland Highway. Those were all named in his honor. But here's more about William Mulholland. He was a self-taught engineer, and he spent his life in public service, primarily securing and operating the water supply for the burgeoning city. Los Angeles is the state's largest city. The water supply was an integral part of the city's ability to sustain and promote growth. He was responsible for creating the Los Angeles Aqueduct, which flows along US 395, easily seen in Lone Pine, California, where I sit at this moment. The water was taken from the drainage of the Eastern Sierra region, which I'm looking at Mount Whitney through our motorhome window, the tallest mountain in the continental U.S. When this water was taken from the drainage of the Eastern Sierra, the most obvious problem was the drying up of Owens Lake. This was devastating to the area in many ways. Between 1905 and 1907, the city purchased vast sections of land in the Owens Valley from local landowners. The California water wars erupted from these controversial transactions. The Los Angeles Department of Water and Power completed the 223-mile Los Angeles Aqueduct by 1913. Land buyouts continued through the 1920s. Los Angeles owned all of Manzanar's land and water rights, and within 5 years the town was abandoned. Manzanar is the site of one of the Japanese relocation camps during World War II. Later in life, Mulholland assisted in the Panama Canal and Hoover Dam projects, and I imagine that none of you have ever even heard of William Mulholland's name attached to these engineering feats. While exploring U.S. Highway 395 this week, we went over and saw the Division Creek Powerhouse, which is a working hydroelectric plant. It was originally built in 1908 to power dredges digging the Los Angeles Aqueduct. And here is the tiny creek that is being used to produce the power from the small powerhouse, even today. Starting in 1913, the river and streams that fed Owens Lake were diverted into the Los Angeles Aqueduct, and the lake level started to drop quickly. In spite of protests from valley farmers and ranchers, Los Angeles completed the first aqueduct from the valley to Los Angeles in 1913 and filled it with reductions in irrigation and, more effectively, by diverting the lower Owens River to the aqueduct. The LADWP continued to acquire land and water rights as valley farmers gave up their dead and drying crops and orchards and moved. And by 1924, Owens Lake and approximately 50 miles of the Owens River were dry. Owens Valley residents expressed their anger at the loss of their agricultural economy by both nonviolent and violent means. By the 1930s, Los Angeles owned approximately 95% of all farm and ranch land in the valley. However, as you drive around here, there isn't any farm or ranch land. It's all just vast desert, creosote trees, sagebrush, cactus. Although very beautiful, it certainly is not what it looked like prior to this project. Across US 395 from the powerhouse, you can find this sign. Near this site lies the intake of the Los Angeles Aqueduct. The aqueduct was constructed from 1907 to 1913 by William Mulholland, an Irish immigrant and self-taught engineer. The 223-mile-long aqueduct would affect the future of the Owens Valley and lead directly to Los Angeles, becoming the second largest city in the United States. This site was chosen for the intake because it is the southernmost point on the Owens River with sufficient elevation to convey the water to Los Angeles entirely by gravity. This project is still considered to be one of the greatest engineering feats of its time. And here you can see a variety of pictures at the beginning of the aqueduct where the Owens River is funneled into it. Here are some pictures of the aqueduct as it passes on the south side of Lone Pine, just to the west of diminished Owens Lake, yards away from our campground. Although there are plenty of no trespassing signs and fencing to keep people away from the aqueduct just for their safety, of course, you are allowed to drive along Owens Lake. The lake is currently a large salt flat whose surface is made of a mixture of clay, sand, and a variety of minerals including halite, berkellite, mirabilite, thornodite, and trona. In wet years, these minerals form a chemical soup in the form of small brine pond within the dry lake. When conditions are right, bright pink, halophilic, salt-loving archaea spread across the salty lake bed. Also, on especially hot summer days when ground temperatures exceed 150 degrees Fahrenheit, water is driven out of the hydrates on the lake beds, creating a muddy brine. More commonly, periodic winds stir up noxious alkali dust storms that carry away as much as 4 million tons of dust from the lake bed each year, causing respiratory problems in nearby residents. The dust includes carcinogens, and one of the days while we were here, while checking the weather, it said hazardous air quality. Driving along many of the roadways throughout the lake is allowed, and Owens Lake is also recognized as an important bird area by the National Audubon Society. There are 4 entry points to enter and drive or hike through Owens Lake. It's about 5 miles south of Lone Pine, California. Unlike most dry lakes in the Basin and Range Province that have been dry for thousands of years, Owens held significant water until 1913, when much of the Owens River was diverted into the Los Angeles Aqueduct, causing Owens Lake to desiccate by 1926. Today, some of the flow of the river has been restored, and the lake now contains some water. Nevertheless, as of 2013, it is the largest single source of dust pollution in the United States. In summary, between 1887 and to present, several companies have set up plants and factories along and around Owens Lake. Here is a picture of an abandoned plant. Currently, Rio Tinto Minerals, one of the world's largest mineral extraction companies, has a lease with renewals through 2048. Here is a view of Owens Lake from Cerro Gordo, the ghost town that we did a Saturday travel tip from. Here is another view of Owens Lake from the middle of paradise, Horseshoe Meadow. American history. Love it, learn it, appreciate it. Thank you.